I'm your host, Micah Versman, and love is in the air on today's episode of the Producer Podcast. Join me as I sit down with Hunter Starnes of Take 4 Films to talk about producing a different area of client work, wedding films. So without further ado, let's get started. Thank you very much for taking the time to come on the show today.
It's my pleasure, Micah. Thank you for having me on.
All right. So to start, how about you just kind of tell us your film story and how you got started?
Okay, well, my film story started around the time that Lord of the Rings came out in theaters. And I was always interested in filmmaking and the behind the scenes of the special effects departments specifically. So I would check out a lot of books from the library about visual effects and things like that. And then Lord of the Rings came out, and that was sort of my film school, was sitting down and watching all the behind the scenes special features off the DVD. From there, it took a couple of years until around 2006 or so. We had a video camera that my parents got us for Christmas. It was a Sony DCR TRV 140, and yes, I still remember the model number and everything. But that camera kind of changed our lives. I say us, it was me and my brothers, and we would just make little films like in the backyard, and just messing around basically. And but we had a lot of fun doing it, which is really important. And then we were kind of the brothers with the video cameras that friends of our family would call upon and have us film their daughter's wedding or their son's wedding, or something like that. I think we charged around $200 or $300 for our first wedding videos. And then from there, it just kind of slowly built up. We were also doing landscaping at the same time. So we had a little, basically, I say landscaping, basically, it was a lawn service company. So we were doing lawn service, which was our actual job. And again, this is me and my brothers working together and owning the business and running the business. And then we were doing these wedding films on the side. And that actually happened for quite a few years where, we were doing the wedding films basically just to get the money to pay for gear so that we can make more films. That was the goal. Actually, we never really made anything too serious. We just kept buying gear, and then we would focus on just doing like wedding films or on travel films, things like that. Not a lot of filmmaking actually. We didn't really have a good way to break into filmmaking at the time. We would make little films, um, by ourselves, but nothing too serious, really, nothing scripted or anything like that. Just having fun. And then the wedding side of things started getting more serious. We started getting more into, you know, getting into filming weddings. We discovered that, at the time when we first started out, we were like, hey, people will actually pay us money to run around with a video camera at a wedding and look cool. Um, and actually, it takes a little bit more work than that, which we quickly
Mm-hmm.
found out. But from there, we just it just grew and grew and grew, and then the lawn mowing business got sold, and we jumped into wedding filmmaking full time. And so I would say our first, I actually looked this up before the podcast interview, but our first wedding was in 2006.
Okay.
And so first one that we actually got paid for. And then I think 2008 or 2009 was our first wedding where we broke the $3,000 barrier. So we charged $3,000 for that. and which was actually pretty good for back then, back in 2009. That was a pretty decent wedding amount to be paid for a wedding. And we probably threw in a lot more than what we should have. We still worked a lot on that wedding, and included a lot of extras and bonuses and things like that. So we also ended up taking a lot of that money and renting professional cameras. So I think we rented some Sony Handycam style cameras. I don't remember what we did exactly, but these were still tape based, I believe.
Okay.
We weren't doing memory cards or anything like that. It was all tape. And then, and then from there, it grew from there, and until here we are today. I am doing this full time, and my brother Parker is doing it full time with me. And we film every single wedding together, mostly, except when he goes off and does a different gig or is traveling with his wife or something like that. Then I'll find a second shooter. But we're pretty much the team, and then my brother Landon will do some editing, a little bit of shooting occasionally. But that kind of brings us to where we are today, doing just chugging out the wedding films and trying to get in a little filmmaking here and there whenever we can.
Okay. So I do have to ask, does the four and Take Four films, because there's like four brothers, or where does that come from?
Yeah, when we first were messing around with a video camera in the backyard, our fourth brother, Trent, would help us with like one or two videos. And then we were like, oh, we need to come up with a name. And so that's when Take Four, at the time it was Take Four Studios, actually. We went big. So, like, hey man, we have an actual studio. We're not just a bunch of kids. We're a studio. It was kind of tongue in cheek and not really too serious, but the name just stuck, and we kind of carried it on over to what we do today, which is now Take Four Films. We rebranded about, I would say, 5 or 6 years ago.
So I guess I'm curious to hear, because essentially the wedding couple is like the client for your project. So how does working with them differ from like the traditional business owner that most people think of when they hear client work?
In some ways, it is very different, and in some ways, it's very similar. Ultimately, when you're dealing with a client, you have to have that pre-production meeting, and you have to decide what the client wants. In our case, it is, what is the ideal wedding film to them, and what do they want to remember about the day. So that pre-production session before the actual wedding is really important to us, and we kind of insist on doing that with each of our couples.
Okay.
And it's kind of the same with a business. If you are doing a video about a small business, or for a small business, a company, a nonprofit, whatever, you have to have that strategy meeting, and you have to determine, like, what are your needs? What are you hoping this video will help you accomplish? Is it more sales? Is it more awareness of your brand? Which of those is it? Is it all of them? Whatever. And then you have to come up with a game plan on how you can best create a video that will serve your client. So in that way, it's similar. Obviously, with weddings, everyone sort of knows like what goes on a wedding day for the most part. There are little surprises, and we have to know like the addresses and locations and things like that. For the most part, the structure is very similar. Whereas with a small business, it can vary. It can vary creatively. It can be so different just from business to business. We have worked really hard on establishing a brand and a style, so that when clients book us, we kind of know what their style is. They really want what we have already created for other couples. So in some ways that is really nice because it allows us to have a bit of a formula
Mm-hmm.
and be able to consistently produce work that is the kind of style of wedding filmmaking that we have, and it keeps our clients happy because if they book us based on another couple's wedding video, which happens very often. Somebody will share one of our videos, like a couple will share the video we created for them, and their friends or family will see that video, and they're going to be like, "I want that for my wedding," and so they're going to book us for a similar style, and for a similar vibe. So it's sort of like it's not like having a template, but it's kind of like having a style.
Mm-hmm.
When you go watch a Wes Anderson movie, you're basically what you're kind of gonna get. You're gonna get Wes Anderson style. And so Take Four Films has a style, and when our clients book us, we have, they know that they're going to get that style wedding video. With businesses, it's a little bit different. They're not really booking us for, well, for the most part, they're not booking us because, oh, you did this video for this company, and we want the exact same thing. It's more about,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I know Hunter or I know Parker. I know you guys do video. Can y'all come in and help us, make a video for our business? And usually they say, I've seen your work and I like it, but can you do this differently? This is what we want to do. So that's a little bit more challenging. I find that a little bit more fun and satisfying because it's a little bit more different. I find weddings also very satisfying because you are trying to please just two people. And if they love the film, and as long as you've captured everything that they wanted, and you produce the film and you give it to them, they usually love it. They share it immediately. Whereas for small businesses, it's a little bit more of a process. Sometimes they don't share the video immediately. Sometimes you can't share the video in your portfolio right away. They're just different. It's a different kind of relationship. So I find the relationship with the bride and groom very fulfilling personally. And then I find the work that small businesses give me a little bit more challenging and a little bit more fulfilling from a creative standpoint.
Okay. So I want to jump back to how you're talking about how you guys created kind of like a style for Take Four Films with your wedding. So how did you kind of come about figuring out what that style was going to be? And then I guess maybe like what's some advice you'd give to other filmmakers out there that are trying to figure that same thing out for their wedding business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. As far as style goes, I'm still trying to figure out what our style is exactly. There are certain elements that I can tell you right now what our style is. We use a lot of narration to tell the story of the couple. We try to focus on their backstory. We try to focus on their personality, and and audio helps us with that rather than just visuals. Visuals helps with that too, but mostly audio. Every time I have a chat with a wedding client, they always tell me, like, I love that you use the audio from the speeches at the reception, or I love that you use the personal vows, or that the couple read their private letters to each other on video. Um, and that allows us to tell the story of the couple and focus on them rather than on the wedding day. Um, if you just do like a wedding video and it's just a montage of nice images set to music, that's not really that interesting to me. I like to focus more on the backstory of the couple, because we're storytellers and we have to try to
Mm-hmm.
find ways to make it more interesting for us as storytellers. And so focusing on the couple and telling their story is kind of what is one element of our films that people always comment on. We like to use, I wouldn't say we use a lot of natural light. We're not dark and moody. We're more bright. We like colors. We still try to make it filmic. But we don't shy away from using color. We don't shy away um, I would say we don't have a lot of contrast in our look. It's not flat, but it's not contrasty. It's not dark. It's
Mm-hmm.
not desaturated. It's more colorful. It's more, in some ways, filmic. Um, and then another element of our style is that, I mean, we have a bit of a template where we have an introduction. So a 30-second to 1 minute sort of hype uh, reel that start our films off and show the best parts of the wedding day. And then from that introduction, it's kind of a three act story structure actually, but kind of our own style. Um, from that first act, which is just the opening, kind of the introduction to the couple, to the wedding day, to the locations, everything else. We go to act two, which is the preparation for the wedding and, the bride and groom getting ready. And we usually overlay that with audio of, you know, the audio of their backstory of the couple themselves and, their personality and things like that. And then we move into the ceremony and then we go into the reception. So it's a little bit more of a linear timeline, but we add a little bit of surprises here and there. So we kind of jump back in time a little bit every now and then. So let's say if the couple have a wedding first look, um, we might put the first look at a different part of the day than what it actually happens. And we try to put that at a moment where the music reaches a crescendo and where it's a high point in the, not a high point in the film, a moment of impact, I guess. That's not the word I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking for, but that'll do. Um, and then the other part of your question was, how do you go about finding your style and how we found our style? I just did what felt good to me. I watched a lot of wedding films and I chose some filmmakers that I really liked and enjoyed. And I copied them, but I would try to change it up a little bit and kind of make it our own. So you need to, everyone does this. Every creative does this. They find somebody they really enjoy, they really like, and then they copy them for a little while, and then you start getting a little bit more um, confident in your own skills, and you start doing things a different way, and you start having your own voice. So I would just say for someone starting out, make make something that feels good to you, that you like, that you would like to watch, and you're going to find a couple that um, also have that same style. The worst thing you can do when you're first starting out is to try to appeal to everybody.
Okay.
That's what a lot of wedding filmmakers do. They try to appeal to everyone. And also don't get caught up in all the trends. Trends can be fun, but if it's trendy, then everybody else is doing the exact same thing. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to be doing what everybody else is doing. You want to do something that sets you apart. So start thinking of ways that set you apart. And, it might not be how your wedding films look. It might be your backstory that sets you apart. Your work might look the same as everybody else's, but your personality, the way that you connect with your couples, that could be um, the way that you set yourself apart from the competition. It could be your marketing. It could be the way you deliver your films. Just start thinking about the ways that um, you can do your own thing and give your clients a choice. So I would say just to kind of sum it up, I would say find find the way you like to do things, find the style of filmmaking that you like, and make that film for your couples, and you will find couples who will want to hire you based on your style. And then don't be afraid to be a little different. It's not it's not bad if you're similar to other filmmakers. You're always going to find an overlap of a style that somebody else is doing. You're always going to be copying some other people, but try to find a way how you can inject your personality into the film or inject your own artistic vision into the film,
Okay.
and experiment a little bit. That it's going to take you a little while to find that style, but once you do, then it's really going to start clicking, and hopefully you can build on that over the years.
Right. Yeah, that's some good advice. Um, so then you kind of talked about, at least for you guys, it seems like most couples that are coming to you are coming because they like your style already, and that's what they want. So then, like, once the couples are coming, what type of questions are you asking, either to still kind of vet them a little bit, make sure they're going to be a client you want to work with, or even to just understand, like, the scope of their wedding and what they're all wanting?
Yeah, great question. I have two meetings with each of our clients. So the first meeting I have with them is usually a phone call, and I insist on a phone call before they sign the contract and pay the deposit, just to make sure that they're not crazy, or to make sure that we even just get along, or that they
Mm-hmm.
want a wedding video. A lot of couples will want to hire a videographer just because their friends told them they should,
Mm-hmm.
or because their family wants to add one. And that's fine if they want to, pay our prices, and if they want to go through our process. Um, I don't mind serving that type of client, but I really want to try to find the clients who are excited to work with us and want um, to to go through the entire Take Four Films process, and who really are booking us because they like our wedding films. Those are the type of clients that I want. So, I don't really have much of a structure. I don't really have a list of questions. I just try to chat with the client with that first phone call and try to keep it light. I'm not really taking notes. I will just chat with them, just be like, hey, tell me your story. How did you become engaged? Why do you want us to film your wedding? Why do you want a wedding video in the first place? What is the style of your wedding? If you have booked your vendors, which vendors have you booked yet? That's actually a pretty good indication of what their style is going to be like. If it's a vendor that I've
Mm-hmm.
worked with before, I'm going to know kind of what that style is, what their style is. Um, and then, ask them for their backstory, joke around with them a little bit, just try to get to know them a little bit as people. And then what that's the first phone call. And then if I have a good feeling about it all, I will send over the contract and let them book us. And that also gives them an opportunity to see if they like me, and if they get along with me. Okay. And I tell them this, I'm like, hey, there are so many talented filmmakers out there. You really want to choose somebody, not just because of the work that they do, but choose somebody knowing that you can get along with them. And you don't have to be best buddies with your clients, but you want to at least make sure that you get along well with them and you're able to work together with them, because you're going to be spending all day with them, and they're going to be spending
Right.
all day with you. So, the last thing you want to do is book somebody who doesn't know you. I've done this before, and it's okay if you do it. It's just not ideal, especially when you're first starting out. You can't always book clients that you want to work with or who really want to work with you. But, if you book a client and then you show up on the wedding day and that's the first time that you've met them or talked with them, that's usually not, I mean, that's not ideal at all. So I try to make sure I know their backstory and get to know them a little bit better before they book us. And then after they book us, about a month before the wedding, I'll reach out to them and ask them if they can meet for a pre-production meeting, a wedding strategy meeting. We go over the timeline together. We go over um, the all the locations where everyone's going to be when they're getting ready, where the ceremony is going to be at, what time the reception is, everything else. We go over music selection. Do they have a particular song that they like? What's their musical style? We go over things like, do they want to read their letters that they write to each other on the wedding day? About half of our couples do that, half of our couples don't. Do they, and also what is their vibe? Are they more romantically inclined, or are they more of a fun-loving couple? That's going to determine the kind of shots that we get throughout the wedding day and what the tone of the wedding video will be. Because even though we have our look, our style, we can switch it up a little bit based on the couple's personality. And that's what we try to do. We try to have that style be flexible to who the couple are. And so I asked them what their style is, if they're more fun, if they're more romantic, if they're a mix of the two. Are they comfortable in front of the camera? If not, we go over some of the things we do to make sure that they're comfortable on the wedding day. Oh, we go over some of the things that we do on the wedding day. We always try to mic the bride. And, that's a process. So I always check and make sure that the bride knows what the process for that is. And even if it's okay if she wears a microphone. So just little things like that. We make sure that the groom is okay with wearing a microphone. We give them a little bit of the behind the scenes process and what to expect on the wedding day. So, that usually takes about an hour to 2 hours for that strategy session. And by the way, you should be building that into your pricing. So you shouldn't just be charging, we charge hourly on a wedding day. So our rates are higher for a wedding day than they are if someone's just hiring us to go film a concert or something.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have that pre-production strategy, and we have to prep all the gear before the wedding day, and everything else that goes on. So make sure that when you're billing your client and building your packages, make sure that you also build in that pre-production time with your couple, and make sure you're paying yourself for that. So that's just a little bonus tip right there.
Yeah, no, that's an important bonus tip for sure.
Yeah, I wasn't always doing that. I wasn't always charging for my time. And that hurt me. And I feel like our business would have grown a lot faster if I had been billing our couples for that extra time that it takes before you actually hit record on the video camera.
Mm-hmm. So one thing I did want to ask jumps back to kind of the timeline for a wedding day. Because in like the traditional film world, the producer's usually the one helping make the schedule of like, we're, shooting this scene all morning, or it's going to take all day. Whereas with weddings, usually somebody else is planning the schedule of like, well, here's when the reception is, here's when the ceremony. So how do you work around still being creative and getting what you need, but where you have these time constraints that you can't really change and bump if needed?
So good. That is a great question. So we really go off of whatever timeline the couple provide us. There are a couple of things that I tell them before the wedding and before they create the timeline. I ask for about 10 to 15 minutes alone with the couple. Usually this is during their romantics photography section, where it's just the two of them. And we focus on just getting shots for the wedding film. So action shots, shots where they're not just like posing for the photographer. We get those shots as well, but if you just have a wedding film just filled with those, it's not going to be very dynamic. So I tell them, hey, we need to get some special shots where you guys are moving, because that looks better on film. So I tell them, when you talk with your wedding planner or your photographer, or when you guys create your schedule, whoever it is, try to give us about 10 to 15 minutes of time with y'all so that we can capture some some video for, for your wedding film. And that doesn't always happen. Oftentimes timelines are really short, or the photographer wants all the time. And so, if that's the case, then we try to get creative. We try to come in, when the photographer is getting their shots and they're in a certain pose, we might be like, hey, while you have her in that pose, why don't you like give her a twirl or something like that? Or, if they're looking at the photographer, hey, why don't you two just look at each other for a minute and hang out? Another thing I often use, if they're holding, if he has his arms around her and they're kind of hugging or something, I'll just say something like, as soon as the photographer is done with his or her shots, I'll ask the groom to like whisper in his most romantic voice that he can muster, his favorite breakfast cereal or something else kind of stupid like that. And I'm just trying to think of like little things for them to do so that it doesn't feel like they're acting, but they're having fun, and we're getting some of those natural moments, those candid moments, the authentic laughter and everything else. So, another way that we get creative during the wedding day is, let's say we're moving from one location to another. Sometimes the photographer sees a location that they want to take photographs at. And while we are walking to that location, I'll have them hold hands and look at each other. And as we're moving, I'm filming them. And I make sure they know that I'm filming them, and I kind of pose them, but we're kind of accomplishing something right there. We're moving from location A to location B. And while we're doing that, we're getting some cool shots of them, like just walking together. I may have them, do a couple of poses or something like that on the way, but, you try to find the time when you can. Another way you can do that is we will sometimes take the couple out during, once the reception's in full swing, people are dancing or they're mingling, whatever they're doing. I will take them out when it's usually dark outside, and we'll have some fun with them and do some, we'll take some video lights outside. We'll have, we'll just do some more shots like that. And so that allows us to sneak in a couple more cinematic shots later on in the day when, everything's already been done, maybe right before they leave the reception. Then, we get some cinematic shots with them during that time. So those are a couple of things that we do. And I tell the client beforehand that this is what we try to do. If you can't find us that extra time, then we're gonna find the time when we can. I also tell the couple that we are going to be asking for more shots constantly. And I also want to make sure that they know that they can relax, and we also that they know that we are also wanting them to relax and enjoy the day. So it's a bit of a balance between getting all the cool shots that we want to get and also letting them enjoy the day. So I ask the couples always, I always leave it up to them. Hey, do you guys want to go out to this location and do some shots with us for the video? And then I leave it up to them. I'm just going to be like, hey, I think it'd be cool. It's a cool location, cool lighting. I think it's going to look great, but y'all tell me if you're up for that. And usually they are. But I also make sure the couple know that if they're not up for it, or if they're feeling tired, or they just want to hang out with their family and friends and everyone who's at the wedding, just to be sure to just tell me no. Like, I'm not going to be offended. I'm not going to be sad. Well, maybe I'll be a little sad if they want to do it. But it's ultimately about making sure they enjoy the wedding day, because it's not so much about getting all the cool shots. When you've been doing this long enough, you start realizing that not every wedding has to be amazing. And you do your best job that you can, and you get caught up in getting all these cool shots and everything. But ultimately, it comes down to just making sure that the couple are having fun. And so you get good. Eventually, you get good at reading the couple and reading what they, if they're tired, if they're actually really not into taking more photos or video, if they just want to relax a little bit and dance. You get pretty good at sort of reading body language. And so that's what I try to do. To go back to your original question, this all happens in pre-production. So I tell them what we would like, and then I leave it up to them to make the decision.
Okay.
Another thing that I tell them that I would like is I try to get a couple of hours of filming in before the bride puts on her dress. So that allows me to show up and get shots of the location or take the drone up if I need to. That allows me cinematic shots of the bride's dress, of the groom's like cool watch or shoes or whatever details he might have. That allows us to get shots of them just hanging out. Hair and makeup shots, if they're doing that, those are usually faked because we're not always hanging around, filming people while they're getting hair and makeup. This is another quick tip, by the way. Don't just show up and start pointing a camera in people's faces. Make sure they know you're there and make sure that they're okay with you filming, and also wait until they have most of their hair and makeup done, because they're going to look much better and they're going to appreciate it, if you actually wait until they look good before you start filming. That was one of the things I did when I first started. I would show up and I would get shots of the bride when she was just starting to get her hair and makeup, put on. And I quickly realized that it was better to wait until the last part of that, when she had all of her makeup done and everything. And then we would usually just fake those shots, because the hair and makeup artists, they have, they have their own lights, or they have them in an area of the room that isn't very pretty. So I'll wait till they're done and then just be like, hey, could we come over here for a couple of minutes, and, where the window light is really nice, and, just set the bride down right there and just fake some shots. Usually your wedding film is going to look a lot better, and your footage is going to look a lot better, and your subject is going to look a lot better. Namely, the bride's going to look better. So anyway, just a quick tip there. So back to your original question. I let them know that we want a couple of hours before the bride gets in her dress. I let them know that we want about 10 or 15 minutes of time just with the couple, so that we can get shots of them in motion without intruding on the photographer's time. And then I let them know that we might come to them later on in the day, whenever that time might be, whenever I feel like that they're just kind of chilling and they have a little bit of extra time. And we might grab them and take them somewhere and do a couple more shots. And I always try to be quick. You always want to make sure that your gear is working properly, that your lights are all set up and everything, because you don't want to take very much time away from the bride and groom. You want to let them hang out with their friends and family too, and enjoy the wedding day. So it's a balance of creativity and making sure that you're taking care of your clients, namely the couple, and that they're having fun.
All right. So I did want to ask, because I know you recently got married. Has that changed at all how you work with couples now that you've been in their shoes, and can kind of understand what they're going through more?
Yeah, I don't think it's changed anything. I think it's made me a little bit more aware of just how special that day is, and how it's not all about the film or the photography. Those are very important things, but really it's more about making sure that the couple enjoy the day, and making sure that it doesn't feel too much like a production. I'm glad our wedding wasn't like that. I made sure that both Amy, my wife, and I made sure that we had plenty of time to just chill with our people on the wedding day. And so I feel like we did a pretty good job of that. We had plenty of time to spend with our guests, and also plenty of time to do photo and video as well. So it hasn't really changed anything from how I do things, but it has made me more aware and more sensitive to the fact that, it's not as important as film and photography is. It's not the most important thing on the wedding day. So it's just giving me a little bit more a better perspective on that.
So every filmmaker that works in the client space at some point or another is going to run into a either bad client, or maybe a problem client is what they would call it. sometimes my guess is they're probably called either Bridezilla or the mother of the bride in your industry. So what advice do you have with dealing with those types of clients?
Yes, there are so many ways that things could go wrong sometimes, and there are so many different scenarios. Just very recently, actually, I got hit with something that I've never been hit with, and that was the groom asked if he could go down in his level of package that he booked. So at the time he booked us, he booked a what we call the short film package, which is me and my brother for 8 hours on a wedding day.
Mhm.
And it includes a bunch of other things. But he wanted to go to a ceremony only video, which we don't offer anymore, but at the time we did. And that only takes one of us really for like a full ceremony setup. And so I had to tell him that we couldn't do that. That that he booked us for the day, and he booked both me and my brother for our time. And so he has the two of us. So because we can't go and we can't book another wedding during that time. Um, to make a long story short, we kind of came up with um, a solution that worked for both of us, where I gave him a bit of a discount and told him that we would just deliver the footage to him unedited, but we would film his wedding like normal, like we were going to make a full wedding film later on.
Mm-hmm.
And he was okay with that. So I gave him a price discount because they went over their wedding budget. So I would say, and the reason I tell that story is listen to your clients, and then try to work with them as best you can, but always listen first. Make sure you know what they're asking. Make sure they know what they're getting themselves into when they book you. Try to be upfront with everything. Have a good contract. And when you first start out, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to miss out on things that you should have included in your contract. Like a common thing is make sure that you're fed on the wedding day. Because you're spending 8, 10, 12 hours with the couple, and oftentimes you can't go out and get your own food.
Mm-hmm.
And so, make sure that they feed you, or at the very least, make sure you ask them for some time to chill and to eat a cereal bar or something like that. And then, manage expectations. Make sure that they're aware of your policies and things like that. Now, sometimes that doesn't, most people are reasonable. And usually if you are respectful and you listen to them, then that's going to work for most people. Sometimes you have the client that is belligerent or just, it's just being very difficult. And those are tough clients, and you can't really please them. So you can say, at that point, it's just sort of like entering into damage control. Like, how can we minimize the damage? And that's going to look different depending on the scenarios and the things that they're wanting. I would just say, again, I guess to shorten my answer would be to listen to the client, make sure that you know what they're asking of you, make sure they know what their expectations are, and then also try to deal with them and try to offer if you can't meet their demands or you don't want to meet their demands, then try to come up with another creative solution that, so if they're trying to save money, try to think of a creative way to save them some money. Also making sure that you're taken care of. Oftentimes when a couple book you, and if they want to cancel, then I'm just using this as one example of one of the many things that can happen. If they want to cancel because for whatever reason you're not in their budget anymore, or they call off the wedding or whatever, then make sure that you have in your contract a policy where you keep the deposit, you keep some money for your time, because you probably won't be able to book that day again,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how close it is to the wedding day, of course. So, you're going to find those things the more weddings you do, and the more you talk to other filmmakers and industry pros, you're going to figure out those things that you should be watching or looking for, and those things you should include in your contract. Also, just talking with people, you're going to find red flags, and just in their manner or in the way that they talk and things like that. Always go with your gut feeling, and be okay with not booking that client. If you think they're going to be a problem client, it would be better not to put yourself through that, even though you think you might need the work or something like that. And we've all been there where
Mm-hmm.
I do this too. I will book a client because I might not have the best feeling about it, but for whatever reason, I decided we needed to book that day, or I wanted to book that day. And so it happens all the time. You live and learn. You make mistakes, and you learn from your mistakes. And don't be afraid to say no, and don't be afraid to refund money if you feel like you don't want to work with them. Always be polite and always be professional about it. Don't get your feelings hurt. Oftentimes, clients are short on money, and they won't want to say they're short on money. And so, or some other reason that they might be ashamed to say why they're giving you trouble, or they don't want to book you anymore, or whatever the case may be. So always be understanding, be professional. Don't take it personally. That's a big thing as well. Don't take any of that personally. Also be firm. Don't be a pushover. And try to find a creative way to keep your client satisfied, and also making sure that you take care of your business and your employees if you have any.
That sounds good. And yeah, I can relate. I had one of those recently where it's like I kind of need the money, but it was a client that has always been hit and miss. Sometimes it's a really great experience. Sometimes I'm pulling my hair out at the end, and it was like, is it worth taking the job because I need the money and risk it being another one of those stressful shoots?
That's something I think we all deal with. So yeah, it's just a case of weighing the risks. Like, how much do you want the work, and how much do you need the money, and balancing that
Mm-hmm.
out. So yeah.
So I have just a couple wrap up questions for you. Um, so first one, because like obviously you've touched on a lot of advice and lessons you've learned working with clients, but maybe like what's one thing, whether it's wedding clients, business owner clients, that you know now you wish you would have known when you first got started?
Mm, I would say oh gosh, so much. I would say first and foremost, for me personally, don't focus so much on the gear, focus more on technique. Um, I'm a gearhead and still am proudly, and I can get caught up in all the new cameras and latest lenses and things like that. Don't allow that to hamper your creativity, or don't let that get in the way of smart business decisions. So um, don't get caught up in the gear in filmmaking. It would probably be, for me, was the biggest thing that I wish I had known when I first started out.
And then My final question for you is, what advice do you have about networking in the industry and really doing that well?
Um, I'm horrible at networking. I always feel a little strange when I go to networking events, and I do much better when I have one-on-one time with people. So I will find somebody on Instagram and I see their work. And if they're a local filmmaker, I will reach out to them and just be like, "Hey, I love your work," and follow them, and then eventually just be like, "Hey, do you want to grab some coffee?" Or ask them questions. A lot of people love to answer questions, and you know, uh, for wedding filmmakers, when you're just starting out, they would be good to start out with, and also try to be there for them. A lot of wedding filmmakers will try to find second shooters, and second shooters are really hard to find. Good second shooters are hard to find. Responsible second shooters are hard to find. So go out there and offer to like second shoot for them. You know, especially when you're first starting out, it's a good way to build up your knowledge and your skills without just jumping in and trying to figure it out. So reach out to filmmakers who you respect, ask to like meet up with them for coffee or something, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And then do the same with other wedding pros, photographers, wedding planners. Whatever you do, make sure that it feels natural and doesn't feel fake, because people can really feel that when it's fake. Now, don't let that deter you from trying new things. Go to networking events. Sure, try that works for some people. Try to do one-on-one like coffee meetings or breakfast meetings with people. And then also just reach out on Instagram and be a fan of some of the people that of the work they like, and be authentic and be yourself. Don't be afraid to ask questions. So that's really the only advice I have. That's the way I try to do things, is try to keep things one-on-one, personable, and making sure that it doesn't feel fake and forced, which oftentimes networking events can feel that way. But I've also met some cool people at networking events too, and gotten work from networking events. So, I would just say try things and figure out what works for you.
Yeah, that's good advice. Something I'm still trying to figure out for myself. What works best for me.
Everybody's different. So finding out what your strengths are your strengths, being with a crowd of people and like moving among a crowd and getting to know lots of people that way? Or is your strength more one-on-one quality time with people? Mine is one-on-one quality time. And so I don't do very well in groups. So, find your strengths, know yourself, and work to those strengths.
Yeah, it's a good thing to keep in your back of your mind. So we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode of the podcast. So thank you very much, Hunter, for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Micah. It was a pleasure.
Until next time, make sure to subscribe to the Producer Podcast, and thanks for listening.